Hey you, thank you for clicking on the video, much appreciated. My name's Steve, this is Everyman Fragrances. It's a YouTube channel where I share my unbiased opinions on fragrances and sometimes some other shit, but you know, that's the general scheme here. Anyway, today I want to talk to you about a relatively new niche house, fragrance house based in London, so it's quite exciting. The house in question is called Bell Senteur. Now, I'm probably over-egging the omelette there on the French pronunciation of Senteur, but there we go. Anyway, they're based in London. The brand and house owner is called Bell. I've never met her. She reached out to me on email and said, I kind of like your channel. I'm sure she's sent that email to quite a few people. And said, can I send you like 3 bottles of fragrances that I think you'll like and just for you to share your opinions? And I said no. Because if you send me bottles, not only am I kind of stuck with bottles that I may or may not like, and then I sort of feel bad if I, you know, try and get rid of them or sell them, it's just a bit weird. But also, typically you kind of get 3 bottles and then people don't believe you, you think you're shilling. So I said, send me some samples and I'll try the samples. And she did. Anyway, so Belle sent me these samples. So I've got 5 samples to try. I've been trying them over the last few weeks now, so I'm probably going to reference notes that I've made on my phone when I was wearing them. The only downside, so it's good not having a bottle means you guys will probably trust me because I'm smelling from samples, and again, I've not been paid for this video. The only thing I've got is these 3 samples, and to be fair, you could have filled them up a little bit. Some of these samples weren't very full, so I really didn't have much to go on, to be honest. The downer on having samples is you don't get that full wearing. With a bottle, you get a full spray from a bottle and you can wear several sprays and you can wear it several times to really test it. With samples, you can't really do that, especially when the samples aren't kind of full. But so these are very much kind of early first impressions. So it's been hard to test the performance, to be perfectly honest, because I can't wear full sprays and kind of go heavy, etc. So these are just kind of really share my sort of relatively early opinions on how they smell rather than how they perform. What I will say is, in general, the performance has been all right. I didn't notice it being beast mode on any of them, but I didn't notice that they just evaporate really quickly, and I didn't notice them. They seemed quite average from these little small samples, sort of 5 to 6 hours kind of longevity in general. But as I say, it might have been better if I could get some full sprays from a full bottle, but that was my fault, not hers. Before I tell you what I thought to these fragrances, I just thought I'd share a little bit of info about the fragrance house themselves. And again, I need to emphasize they've not asked me to say any of this. This is just my choice. This is stuff that I found on their website that I thought you guys might find interesting or relevant or whatever. The house themselves are cruelty-free and vegan-friendly, if there's anybody out there that's that way inclined. And the batches are small batches. I don't know how small, but it just says they're kind of small. They're handmade and hand bottled. So again, you've kind of got that sort of small, personalized indie niche house vibe. The bottles are 30ml, so quite small, and they're £33. So quite affordable as an outlay, but just note obviously that as £1 per ml, it's, well, they're not cheap, but they're not expensive either for kind of a niche fragrance house, so just bear that in mind. You can also, which is quite cool, you can personalize the bottles and the lids, which I thought was really cool. I just found that on the website. Annoyingly, because I've become this stupid anti-shill and shot myself in the foot, I've got no bottles to show you, so I can't show you these lids, so I'll show you some images and stuff on the screen if I can find some. So yeah, when they reached out to me, I just sort of, my first thing was to sort of Google them and look at their website, and I just thought of all these things, it just looked quite cool and a bit different, so that's why, and the fact that it's kind of based in London and stuff like that, I just thought they seemed quite cool, I'll give them a try. So that's why I responded and said, yeah, just send me some samples and I'll give it a go. So that's the story. As I say, honest opinions, not being asked or paid to say anything. So the first fragrance I tried from this little selection was called Alpha Chypre. This one's formerly known as Alpha Black, in case anybody have seen it previously, or you know, you've found that or you own it or whatever. Anyway, so that is the same fragrance. Now, when I first sprayed this, I thought, that smells a bit like a Ventus. Now, don't stop watching the video now, because this is not a clone house and this is not a clone of a Ventus, but it's sort of a nod to it. I would say it smells like 65% of a Ventus. Yeah, definitely right at the top in the opening. So I emailed Belle and actually said, this, because I was thinking, oh, is this like another clone house that's not a clone house or whatever? And I just said, look, this smells a bit like a Ventus. And she said, I said, it's really nice, everyday signature scent, but it's definitely got those Ventus vibes. She said, I'm glad you find Alpha Chypre to be both pleasant and signature scent worthy, which I did say to her. Thank you for your kind words. I was once very obsessed with the bergamot note in Creed Ventus, while most people seem to be enthralled with the pineapple. Alpha Chypre is a nod to the way that particular note would capture my attention, and no matter how crowded the room is, I would always be able to single out who is wearing it. So that's kind of what she said. Now, as I say, I don't think this is a full-on clone of Ventus. I do agree with what she's saying there. I think it's about 65% similar. For the notes on this that I made, yeah, I basically said it's definitely similar to a Ventus. It's not a full-on clone. It's signature scent worthy, very pleasant. Wear it all year round. Definitely probably the safest option in the range here. You couldn't go wrong. So if you want to try this house and try the quality, definitely the safest bet to go for is Alpha Chypre, for a guy at least. It's just that classic signature scent. Yeah, Ventus thing. It is the bergamot is a bit more amped relative, but notes wise, it's blackcurrant, bergamot, apple, incense, rose, sandalwood, patchouli, and musk. So you can see that the notes are kind of akin to a Ventus, but as I say, not a full-on clone, but definitely in that ilk. But if you want to try this house and try one that you know you're going to like, this is definitely it. Next up, I tried 427. So this has got notes of lemon, bergamot, cardamom, absinthe, pimento, red basil, benzoin, sandalwood, and amber. So this one, again, I'm sort of referencing the notes that I made on my phone at the time of kind of wearing it. I remember wearing this a couple of times actually, because I did actually quite like this one. So I sort of made a note that said that the opening I found was a little bit thin, and dare I say it, almost smelt a little bit cheap with the bergamot and lemon. It's kind of got like a sort of, it's just, sometimes fruity notes can smell a bit synthetic or a bit cheap. And in the opening, I kind of got that, but it did improve on the dry down. Basically, as it dried down, that sort of dissipated. So that only lasted like a few minutes. Like literally, I've kind of made a note here saying, and the dry down was really nice and pleasant. I'd say it's definitely an all year round, but mainly sort of summer, spring, because it's a bit more light and kind of just again a bit more citrusy, a bit lighter, a bit easier to wear in the warmer weather. And I said, but it's got a sort of really pleasant spicy wood that is subtly herbaceous. God, what sort of cock am I writing that down? I don't know. Anyway, that's what I wrote. So yeah, it's kind of got a sort of subtle herby vibe, but with a spicy wood. But it's not a full-on heavy spice that would make it like winter, autumn only. As I say, I've sort of made a note that it's kind of all year, but probably even more so in the sort of spring, summer months. And to try and find something that this was similar to, again, I don't think it's a clone of anything, but just to give you a similar sort of style of fragrance, it reminded me a little bit of Kajal's Homme, the first one, Kajal Homme 1. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. Again, I thought this was kind of really quite safe, but a little bit more interesting than the Ventus one, but actually both really good fragrances. The next fragrance I tried was from the Resonance collection. As I say, there's a couple of different collections. Don't fully know the difference between the two. It probably says it on the website. Go and check it out. Anyway, so this one's called Zerahtonin. Zerahtonin, probably a play on serotonin, I'm guessing. So this features notes of jasmine, ylang-ylang, orange blossom, carnation, tuberose, honey, patchouli, vetiver, or vetiver, if you're really trying to emphasize the pronunciation, amber and musk. For this, I found this one really floral. I don't know if this is marketed as unisex, but this was way too floral for me and not my bag, not my vibe. It's not unpleasant, but it's not a fragrance that I would wear at all. So I said it was just too feminine for me. Again, I know fragrances it could be worn by anyone, but me personally, this was sort of too floral, and in my mind, it was a bit too feminine for me to wear. But it's not unpleasant, so if I smelt it on a woman, I'd quite like it. I said the tuberose is really strong. So the tuberose in this is definitely the most prominent note for me. I quite like tuberose though, so it's probably why I'm a bit more sensitive to it. But tuberose can be very divisive, so just bear that in mind. If you're not sure about tuberose, don't risk this one, because it's definitely there. But if you like tuberose, you'll probably like this one. I said it's really strong and it's almost too much, but not quite. So I think any more tuberose and it would start getting a bit kind of clawing a bit much. So it's just on the sort of safe side, but it is really strong and it is really there. And I said this is not like a date, as I say, I prefer this on a woman, but it's not a date fragrance, like a sexy date fragrance. It's more of a kind of clean, sort of feminine floral fragrance that you might wear to like a wedding or something like that in the spring. So very kind of floral, pretty kind of fragrance, not a sexy, dirty date night. We're going to do some rude things kind of fragrance, so just bear that in mind. Next up was Debonair, which I think is in the Resonance collection again. So notes for this, Gaiac wood, vetiver, cedarwood, amber, tonka bean and resins. So I must admit, when I read the notes before I tried this, I thought, oh, this is going to be right up my street. I like the sound of this one. This had a lovely opening. I literally wrote that down here, lovely opening. After a couple of minutes, it goes a bit more kind of like a sweet powdery kind of vibe. It definitely got a bit more powdery after a few minutes. I don't know if it's the kind of like tonka coming through and kind of adding that sort of sweetness, a bit more of a powdery touch. But the dry down kind of got, then as it got further into the dry down, it got a bit less powdery. So that powderiness kind of subsided a little bit. But it's a very sort of pleasant, sweet, woody scent is kind of what I wrote down. Very unisex. The amber is there, but it mixes in with the woods. So it's not an all-out amber frag. So that's kind of what I made a note of there. So again, if you see amber there, some people, if you're a big amber lover, you might think, oh, I'll try this, but this is not like a full-on amber heavy fragrance. It's there, but it mixes in with the woods just to add a bit of kind of resinness. Adds kind of a resin-like vibe to the woodiness rather than a full-on amber frag. So yeah, and it works. It blends really well. I said it. Again, trying to think of a fragrance that you might sort of compare it to. Again, not a clone, but just something so you can kind of relate to it and sort of picture what it might sort of be like, or the type of fragrance. I sort of struggled, but I sort of said it's akin to something a bit more like an Armani Code, the masculine version, but like more unisex, like a more unisex version of Armani Code, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know if it's like the Gaiac wood and the tonka, but this, unlike that fragrance, this doesn't have any leather, and this is a kind of more sweet and powdery than that. But yeah, that's the only sort of thing I could think of that's sort of similar style, maybe, just to kind of give you a reference point at least. But as I say, it's definitely not a clone. It doesn't smell like it. And the final fragrance is called Opulence. This is from the Resonance collection. This has notes of rose, violet, armoise, don't know, never heard of that. Saffron, grapefruit, amber, leather and oud. Now, interesting combination of notes there, because you'd think like amber, leather and oud would be quite a sort of heavy resinous fragrance. Rose and violet, sort of again a bit sort of lighter and obviously more floral, and then grapefruit there, again sort of light and fresh. So interesting mix of notes on that one. I was surprised because I smelt this before I read the notes, and I sort of got this sort of almost boozy accord in the opening. So I honestly thought when I looked at the notes that I was going to see like rum listed or something like that, but no, not at all. So I got that completely wrong. But yeah, I definitely got this sort of like boozy like accord in the opening. I don't know if it's just like the leather and the oud giving this kind of rich, I don't know, but that's sort of what I got. Yeah, so interestingly, I said with this fragrance, it reminds me of a fragrance it reminds me of something that Roger Dove would create. That's what this reminded me of. I just pictured, I wouldn't be surprised, like smelling this, and again, I'm not sort of saying about quality of ingredients or whatever, but just from a notes pyramid and the smell, I wouldn't be surprised if someone smelt me one from the Roger Dove range and said, smell that, and it smelled like this. It wouldn't be a miss in my mind. I'm trying to think of which particular one. I remember, I think it's Great Britain's quite sort of leather heavy, and this has got the leather in there, which again is quite prominent and noticeable. So that's probably, out of all of them, the closest if I had to pick one. But as I say, again, not a clone, but just to give you a reference point, that's sort of what it reminded me of. The oud in this isn't barnyardy. It's quite pleasant. It's not skanky. It's not like a skanky barnyardy oud. It's quite a nice sort of more sort of a resinous, woody oud. And I said that oud and leather combo works really well together. I mean, obviously we've seen that before in other fragrances, and it is a good pairing, and it works really well here. It's done really well. Once it settles, it's a bit like you get a leather oud combo lifted and slightly sweetened with the grapefruit, and it's very nice. So yeah, the leather and oud works really well, and it's kind of settles in, but then there's this sort of lighter touch to it, so it's not too heavy and full on. It just gets lifted a little bit by that sort of fruity grapefruit. So yeah, again, a really pleasant fragrance. On the whole, I thought the quality was there. It seems they smell good. Seem to be well blended as well, so I've got no issues there. Quite happy to recommend them as a house and recommend you give them a try, to be honest. I think it's quite nice to support a British house. I've not been paid to say any of that. Those are all my own words, but I'm sort of quite happy to recommend that you give them a go. Let me know your thoughts. Seem quite affordable. So yeah, I'm pleased. I'm glad I sort of tried them, and I'm happy to try some more. So let me know if you do try the house. I've not got any discount codes or anything like that for you, unfortunately. But yeah, if they are, say that you found them from this video, that'd be cool. But other than that, yeah, let me know if you do try the house, what you tried, if you've tried them, if you liked it, etc. I'd be really curious to know. Yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. If you got anything out of it, like, comment, subscribe and all that shit. And I will see you for a video soon. Take care, much love.